So what are the implications for you as a reviewer, given what you now understand is the decision-making process? Number one, do it. Do the review. We need to have those reviews. Last year, unfortunately, we had a small but not insignificant number who volunteered to be reviewers, and so we assigned them 3 to 5 proposals to review, and then they simply did not submit their reviews. If you have, in a section as large as Research and Theory, for example, several people that do that, what that means is I get those back from Cindy, all the reviews back, and I have maybe 30 or 40 papers that only have 2 reviewers out of the almost 150 that I received. That can really put a crimp in our ability to get the sessions all ready and everything. So the simple, most important thing you can do is to do your review. And then think through the scoring very carefully when you look at the rubric. What you see on the slide now is something that I found very helpful over the years as I've done the grading, is because I grade so many essay questions and so many papers that come in from students, I'm kind of used to the ABCDF sort of way of thinking. And so I think it can be helpful. So you'll see there that one way you can think about, so if this is a weak paper, is that's kind of a D or an F paper. A fair paper, that's a C. Now you know a C is passing for an undergraduate, but C for a graduate student is not passing. And so that's kind of one way you can think about it is, yeah, this is fair, but it's probably a C, which may not mean that this is, if I give a bunch of 2s, that this really isn't a paper that's going to be good enough to be in a professional conference. If you give it a good or a 3, that's a B. And now when you think about it, you're going to be giving a 1 to 5 score on 6 different questions, so a possibility of 30 points. And so if you give all Bs or goods to a paper times 6, that's 18. And so in essence what we're saying is with that 18, this paper overall is a good paper. If you give each section or each question a very good, that's kind of like an A- or an A. And then the excellent, a 5, is like an A+. Now, what you have to learn to balance here is what Karen is saying about when you've got an absolutely outstanding paper, you do want to give that a high enough score so that it can conceivably be in position to win an award. But at the same time, as a section chair, when I see a score coming in of 30, then I'm a little bit suspicious that you may have just gone through and say, I like this, and given every one of them a 5 without reading it through carefully. And so I probably look at it, and I may then end up agreeing and say, you're right, this deserves 5 in every single category. Or I may say, this doesn't appear to have been looked over very carefully. So while you need to be a little bit sparing on using a 5, you don't want to be so sparing that people can't, if it really is excellent in all 5 categories, then that's just fine. And then to go along with my first comment to you about doing it, get it in on time. We really do need those done on time, and as all of us are this way, I mean the majority of the proposals came in at the very last minute, and the majority of the reviews, we have learned, will be done at the very last minute. But at least get them done at the very last minute. We do have such a short turnaround time, it's essentially that we get them. Now let me talk just a little bit about the symposium that are not integrated, and about giving me some details. Both Cindy and Karen have talked about that, and so I really don't need to say a lot more, but just simply to reiterate, to look back at those suggestions that Karen gave you on step 6 on her slides, about helping give me details. Those of you who are teachers know that a student evaluation that says, I hated your class or I loved your class, is of very little value. What we need are some specifics. So just be sure you give us enough specifics, especially with the symposium, so that we can make wise decisions. Another thing I'd like to talk to you about is laying aside kind of personal preferences, or what I might call biases. There's a couple of issues there that I think are important for us to understand. One are some methodological biases that we have. I have seen over the years sometimes people with a quantitative bias who are extraordinary quantitative researchers who can't understand the value of qualitative research and have a difficult time reviewing it. So if you are a quantitative-oriented person and do receive a qualitative-oriented paper or proposal to review, I'd encourage you to walk down the hall to a qualitative colleague and maybe get a little help. Go back to your old research methods book from graduate school and reread the chapter on qualitative. If you're still struggling with it, please contact the section chair, and they can help you a little bit and maybe even give you a different paper or something like that. But please don't let your methodological biases or preferences interfere with your reviewing of a paper that doesn't follow the same bias. Occasionally we may find also that some findings that a proposal demonstrates violate some of your privately held values. If you have values that are very conservative, moderate, or very progressive, you may not like what you see as a result. And so you may have to kind of hold back and say, I've got to look at this on its theoretical, empirical, pedagogical, policy, or whatever, depending on what section you're reviewing for, on its merit, and not whether I like the findings or not. If you don't like the findings, if somehow you think there may have been a problem with those findings that you can't see in the 1,000-word proposal, then attend that session. If it is an accepted paper, then you'll be able to go and speak to the author at that point. Now, as Karen said, some of the section chairs will have very specific guidelines for you: education and enrichment with pedagogical sorts of issue, family policy with policy sorts of issues that they'll want you to pay attention to. And so pay attention to those particular things. The last thing I wanted to say to you is just simply do your best, particularly if you're a fairly new reviewer. All that Karen and I and Cindy have told you may seem a little bit overwhelming. It really shouldn't be. You'll just naturally be able to do most of the things that we've said to you anyway. I hope that what we've said has helped you understand some things that you may not have been sure about how you should do your evaluations and ratings, or help you tweak a little bit some of your ideas about it. So just do the best you can. We genuinely appreciate the sacrifice and dedication you're showing by doing this. Let me just give you an example. Research and Theory has about 1,100 members. We received about 145 people who agreed to be reviewers. So just barely over 10% of the section volunteered to review papers. So we genuinely appreciate those people who can take time out of their busy schedules and out of writing papers to do this reviewing. I hope it at least gets you one line on your Vita. But I hope you also understand that it's providing a great service not only to NCFR but to all of your colleagues who are trying to get papers in. So thank you, and we'll now